Hello, folks. Welcome back. Earth-shattering news out of the Western Cape at this hour, where Julius Malema has been found guilty of hate speech. While I take exception to the term and the charge of hate speech, because that's a made-up term, I do rejoice that someone inciting violence is finally being found guilty for their reprehensible behavior. In 2022, Julius Malema said at an EFF rally in the Western Cape that EFF supporters, must never be scared to kill, and that a revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act. In his judgment, Judge Mark Scherer stated that Malema singling out white males based on their race and calling for their murder in his speech is unacceptable. Well, duh. If only South African courts had the courage to state the obvious years ago. When such a call comes from the leader of the then third and now fourth largest political party in the country, it has the potential to incite racial violence on a large scale. And it's done exactly that for years now, folks. It's about time that someone paid attention to what Malema's been saying and doing. Scherer found that Malema's statements represented a clear intention to promote or propagate racial hatred, and that the EFF endorsed and supported Malema's hate speech and must also take responsibility for them. So not only is Malema guilty, but the party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, is also guilty of this hate speech, apparently. Now, this judgment is at least 15 years overdue. The harm Malema's hate speech has caused is incalculable. It's a shame he cannot be held culpable for the rape and murders perpetrated after his spewing of hateful rhetoric. Now I'll offer comments from AfriForum and the Democratic Alliance, both of whom have responded in the early hours. This judgment just came out less than an hour ago. AfriForum's years-long pressure campaign has finally bore fruit, with the Equality Court in Cape Town ruling today that Julius Malema, Economic Freedom Fighters leader, was guilty of hate speech. This case follows after AfriForum and its members submitted a torrent of complaints to the South African Human Rights Commission in 2022 regarding Malema's statements during an EFF provincial meeting in the Western Cape. When the case was lagging with no updates by 2023, AfriForum lodged a complaint with the South African Human Rights Commission demanding feedback on its progress. AfriForum has also attended the court case as it was unfolding. While it's been less than an hour since the verdict was released, I nonetheless eagerly await comment from the captured South African Human Rights Commission, which as of press time had no update posted on its website. This judgment, alongside the UK government refusing Malema a visa due to his violent and extremist rhetoric, as well as the US State Department sounding the alarm over the EFF's incitement of violence against minority groups, cast a shameful shadow on Ramaphosa and the ANC's continual refusal to condemn Malema and kill the Boer in no uncertain terms. This from Ernst von Sale at AfriForum. The Democratic Alliance, for its part, has also commented. The Democratic Alliance welcomes today's Western Cape Equality Court finding that Malema is guilty of hate speech, and we commend the South African Human Rights Commission for pursuing this matter. I don't commend them. They ignored this matter. They demonically pursued Ronaldo Goos, who the DA abandoned for no reason whatsoever because they're cowards, and now they're praising the captured South African Human Rights Commission. I'm sorry, Democratic Alliance. Once again, you failed the test. You failed the test. It wasn't the South African Human Rights Commission that's responsible for this judgment. It's AfriForum. This is a victory for the rule of law, for the Constitution, and for all South Africans who cherish the values of free, fair, and non-racial society. For too long, the world has watched as Julius Malema has incited violence, hatred, and division, attempting to unstitch the very fabric of South African society. His hate speech was most recently aired live from the White House in a meeting with President Trump and President Ramaphosa and a South African delegation. John Steenhuisen had the following to say: "This type of divisive language is not just damaging on a local level, it has international repercussions as well. South Africa's reputation on the global stage is at risk when such hatred is condoned or ignored," said John Steenhuisen, who was part of that delegation. And he's 100% correct. It's a shame he didn't have harsher language from Malema in the past. A political leader who incites mass murder is not normal nor permissible. The Democratic Alliance has fought against this for years. Part of the reason we joined the government national unity was to keep destructive and hateful political parties like the EFF out of our nation's government. Well, that may be why they joined, but that really isn't relevant here. The judgment serves as further vindication of our long-standing position that the EFF will unleash a wave of hatred and race-based violence if it is allowed to access power. That's what Steenhuisen says, and I agree with him. He's correct 100% in that. So what is the outcome here, folks? Well, obviously, Malema will appeal this judgment, as will the Economic Freedom Fighters, and most likely the Supreme Court of Appeal or the High Court will overturn this and say that it's free speech, and they're allowed to call for the murder of white males. After all, they've allowed this nonsense to go on for 15 plus years, so why would they not do anything now? Is this a one-off, a Western Cape court and one rational judge finding him guilty? This will no doubt be big news in South Africa over the next several days. Black supremacists will attack racial minorities and blame them for their saintly Julius Malema being found guilty of crimes he's committed. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? Nothing's going to happen to Malema. He won't go to jail for this, maybe a fine, and he'll appeal that, and it'll drag on for years, a la Jacob Zuma, who's yet to be held to account for his corruption in the arms deal 2.5 decades ago. So while it's exciting news, and this will bring encouragement to those who hope for a multiracial, sound, safe, reasonable society in South Africa, it won't change Malema's behavior. In fact, he'll double down and step on his crank again. Cheers.